Moses, the great leader of Israel, the man who stood before Pharaoh, the one who parted the Red Sea. But what if I told you that before any of that happened? Moses was on the verge of death, struck down by God himself, and the only reason he survived was because of his wife, Zapora. Who was Zapora, and why is she barely mentioned? What did she do that saved Moses' life? And what exactly happened in that strange and mysterious moment in Exodus 4:24-26? Stay with me as we uncover the untold story of Zapora, Moses' mysterious first wife, the woman who stepped in when everything was on the line. And if you're new here, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our powerful biblical history. Zapora, a name that means bird in Hebrew. But was this just a name, or did it symbolize something more? Freedom, flight, a woman caught between two worlds. Zapora was the daughter of Jethro, also known as Roel, a priest of Midian. But who were the Midianites? Genesis 25:1-4 tells us that Midian was a son of Abraham through his wife Keturah. This means that Zapora was a descendant of Abraham, just like Moses. But here's the question: were the Midianites true worshippers of the God of Israel, or had they been influenced by pagan customs? Genesis 25:1-4. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Maddan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuah. Jethro was called a priest of Midian. Exodus 2:16. But what kind of priest was he? Was he a follower of the one true God? Or was he involved in other religious practices? The Bible gives us hints that Jethro later acknowledges the power of Yahweh. Exodus 18:10-12. But at this point in the story, we don't know for sure. Now picture this. Moses is fleeing for his life. The sands of the desert stretch before him. His feet are blistered. He is hungry, thirsty, and alone. After days of wandering, he finally comes upon a well in Midian. This isn't just any well. Wells were central to biblical stories. Abraham's servant found Rebekah at a well, Genesis 24, and Jacob met Rachel at a well, Genesis 29. And now Moses arrives at one, completely unaware that this moment will change his life forever. As Moses rests, a group of young women approaches the well. They are Jethro's daughters, including Zapora. They begin to draw water, but suddenly, a group of rough shepherds arrives, pushing them aside and trying to take over the well. Moses, weary but strong, stands up. He drives the shepherds away, defending the women, a stranger in a foreign land, but already acting as a protector, Exodus 2:16-17. Jethro hears of this act of bravery and invites Moses into his home. And so, for the first time since fleeing Egypt, Moses finds a place of refuge. Jethro, seeing Moses' strength and character, gives his daughter Zapora to him in marriage, Exodus 2:21. Imagine what this meant for Zapora. She was leaving behind her family, her customs, and everything she had known to marry a foreigner, an Israelite, a man who had been raised in Pharaoh's palace. Did Zapora fully embrace Moses' faith, or was there tension between them? The Bible doesn't tell us much about Zapora's personal beliefs at this stage, but we do know one thing. Her role in Moses' life was far from over. In fact, the most shocking moment of her story was still to come. Zapora was not only Moses' wife, she was also the mother of his two sons, Gershom, meaning a foreigner there, Exodus 2:22, symbolizing Moses' exile in Midian, and Eliezer, meaning God is my help, Exodus 18:4, a name reflecting God's protection over Moses. These names tell the story of Moses' journey of faith, from exile to divine mission. Though Scripture doesn't tell us much about them, Gershom and Eliezer carried their father's legacy. But did they grow up in Midian or join Israel in the Exodus? That remains one of the mysteries surrounding Zapora's story. And then that moment, it was the night that God himself sought to kill Moses. What happened, and why did Zapora's actions change everything? Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking event that almost ended Moses' life before his mission even began. The journey to Egypt had begun. Moses, now chosen by God to deliver Israel, was traveling with his wife Zapora and their sons. Everything seemed to be falling into place until something shocking happened. Exodus 4:24. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. Wait, what? God, who had just called Moses to lead his people, was now seeking to kill him. Why? What had Moses done or failed to do that was so serious? To understand, we must go back to Genesis 17:10-14, where God made a covenant with Abraham. Every male among you shall be circumcised. It will be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Any uncircumcised male shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Moses, the leader of Israel, had neglected to circumcise his own son. This wasn't a minor issue. It was a violation of the covenant. How could Moses represent God's people when he had failed to uphold the very sign of their relationship with God? As Moses lay in grave danger, unable to act, Zapora took matters into her own hands. She quickly circumcised their son with a sharp stone, an act that must have been painful and shocking. Then she touched Moses' feet with the foreskin and spoke words that have puzzled scholars for centuries. Exodus 4:25-26. "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me," and she said. So the Lord let him alone. At that moment, God relented. Moses' life was spared. But why did Zapora say these strange words? And why did she have to be the one to act? To understand this moment, we need to examine two key questions. First, why was circumcision so important? Circumcision was not just a ritual. It was the sign of God's covenant with his chosen people. Moses, as Israel's leader, could not ignore this command. Second, did Moses refuse to circumcise his son, or was Zapora opposed to it? Some scholars suggest that Moses had delayed the circumcision because of Zapora's resistance. Others believe that Moses himself had neglected this duty, making him guilty before God. What we do know is that Zapora acted decisively, and it may have changed the course of their marriage. In Exodus 18:2, we later learn that Zapora and their sons had been sent back to Midian. Could this event have led to their separation? Did Zapora return home because of this disagreement? One thing is clear. This was a turning point in Moses' life, and Zapora, often overlooked, was the one who intervened to save him. But what happened next? Did Zapora ever reunite with Moses? And what role did she play in his journey? After the shocking encounter where Zapora saved Moses' life, she disappears from the story. The next time we hear about her is in Exodus 18, long after the Israelites have left Egypt. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zapora, Moses' wife, after he had sent her away, along with their 2 sons. Jethro came to Moses in the wilderness, where he was camped at the mountain of God. Zapora and their sons had been sent back to Midian, possibly after the circumcision incident. But why? Some believe Moses sent them away for their safety before confronting Pharaoh. Others suggest that Zapora and Moses may have had a strained relationship over religious and cultural differences. Now reunited, did she embrace Moses' mission, or did she struggle with her new life among the Israelites? What was life like for her? Did she continue practicing her Midianite traditions? Did she fully adopt the ways of Israel? How did she cope with Moses' demanding role as prophet and leader? Unlike Sarah, Rebecca, or Rachel, Zapora is rarely mentioned in the Exodus journey. This silence raises many questions. Was she supportive? Did she struggle with the changes? Or did she quietly fade into the background as Moses focused on leading the Israelites? Perhaps the most intriguing reference to Moses' wife comes in Numbers 12:1. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite woman. Wait, was this Zapora? Some scholars argue that Cushite could refer to Zapora since Midianites lived near Cushite regions. Others believe this refers to a second wife. Moses may have taken later, but why was Miriam so upset? Was it because of Zapora's Midianite heritage? Was she criticizing Moses' leadership through his marriage? Or was this a personal conflict between the women in Moses' life? Regardless of the reason, God responded swiftly, striking Miriam with leprosy for speaking against Moses. This suggests that her complaint was not just about Zapora's ethnicity, but about Moses' divine authority. So what happened to Zapora after this? Did she continue alongside Moses, or did she return to Midian once more? In Exodus 18, Jethro advises Moses on leadership, then departs back to his homeland. But did Zapora and her sons go with him? Exodus 18:27. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. Could Zapora have chosen a quieter life back in Midian, rather than enduring the hardships of the wilderness? Or did she remain with Moses and simply fade into the background? Ancient Jewish traditions and historical commentaries provide various theories about Zapora's fate. Some rabbinic writings suggest that Zapora remained faithful to Moses but stayed behind in Midian, living a separate but devoted life. Others propose that she died at some point before the Israelites reached the Promised Land. If true, this would explain her complete absence from later biblical accounts. Some Christian scholars speculate that Zapora's disappearance may be linked to Moses possibly marrying another woman, as suggested in Numbers 12:1. But with no concrete answers, Zapora remains a mystery. So what can we learn from Zapora's story? She was a woman of courage, quick thinking, and deep devotion. Though history has largely overlooked her, her actions shaped biblical history in ways we are only beginning to understand. Zapora acted in faith, even when she may not have fully understood the covenant God had made with Israel. When Moses' life was at stake, she didn't hesitate. She took decisive action. But was this act of obedience easy for her? Likely not. Faith is not always about having all the answers. It's about trusting God even when the path is unclear. Obedience often comes at a personal cost. Zapora had to leave her homeland and culture behind. She may have experienced separation from Moses after their time in Midian. She had to act quickly in a moment of great fear, likely not fully understanding what was happening. But without her obedience, Moses' story may have ended before it even began. What does this teach us? That true faith requires action, even when we don't have all the details. Moses was chosen by God for a great mission, but his calling didn't just affect him, it affected his entire family. Zapora's story reminds us that when God calls someone, it can create tension within relationships. Did Zapora struggle with Moses' growing responsibilities? Was she fully on board with his mission, or did she feel left behind? How did she balance her role as a wife, mother, and foreigner in a new culture? This raises an important question for us today. How do we handle the tension between faith and family responsibilities? Sometimes following God's call requires sacrifice, not just for us, but for those closest to us. A pastor's spouse may have to adjust to the demands of ministry. A missionary's family may have to leave behind a familiar home. A believer in a secular workplace may face opposition for their faith. Zapora's story is a reminder that God's calling is rarely easy, but obedience, even in difficult moments, leads to his greater purpose. Zapora is one of the few women in the Bible who takes decisive action in a critical moment. She recognized the urgency of the situation and did what needed to be done. Her intervention saved Moses, allowing him to fulfill his mission. She was not a prophet or a leader like Miriam or Deborah, yet her role was just as significant. What does this teach us about the strength of women in the Bible? Many women in Scripture played vital roles in God's plan, often behind the scenes. Esther risked her life to save her people. Ruth chose faithfulness over comfort. Mary embraced the calling to carry the Son of God. Zapora's story reminds us that leadership isn't always public. It often happens in the unseen moments of faith and obedience. So what can we learn from Zapora? Faith requires action. Obedience comes with sacrifice. God uses unexpected people to accomplish his purposes. Zapora may not be as well known as other biblical women, but her story holds powerful lessons for all of us. What are your thoughts on Zapora's story? Do you think she deserves more recognition in biblical history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Untold Bible stories. Her story is a powerful reminder that even those who seem to be in the background can make an immeasurable impact on history. Her actions had lasting effects on the Exodus story. And yet, after Exodus 18, she disappears from the biblical record. Did she continue to support Moses from afar? Was she overshadowed by the demands of his leadership? Or was her role complete after ensuring Moses fulfilled his covenant obligation? Regardless of the answers, one thing is clear: Zapora's obedience changed history. Now let's turn it over to you. What do you think about Zapora's role in Moses' life? Do you believe she should have been mentioned more in Scripture? Her story raises many questions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and join the discussion. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the untold story of Zapora, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We have more powerful biblical stories coming your way. Stories of faith, courage, and the hidden figures of Scripture. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.